Hey everybody, I'm at the gym, and before I go in, I wanted to do a quick video about something I've been thinking about. A lot of people talk about genetics, your genetic potential, and how far you can go on your genetics, um, which got me to thinking about identical twins. I went to high school with two sets of identical twins, and it's funny because both of the situations turned out kind of similar. And I'm not going to bring up any names because I actually still have one on my Facebook and I didn't ask permission to use their names. So, oh, I almost said all four of their names by accident, but I'm not going to do that. So, the one set was girls and identical twins. The one started working out early and being into sports, and she was about an inch or two shorter than the other one, but had way more muscle development. But in the face, it was very hard to tell them apart, you know. And they were both, good looking. So the others were two sets of boys, or one set of boys, brothers. And I actually met the first one because of weight training and stuff. And he was into weight training, and he was very buff. You know what I mean? Like very big for his age. And about, it's funny, I didn't even know he had an identical twin. About a year and a half later, his brother I met. And as soon as I saw his brother, I knew they were brothers and they looked immensely alike, but it didn't strike me that they were identical twins at first because the other brother was taller, okay, and very thin. And what had happened is the first one that I met had been working out very heavily, at the age of 14 and 15, which gave him the girth and the stockiness, and he didn't grow as tall as and it's funny because you think of one is older and one is younger, but they're, within what, couple minutes of the same age. But I always call one the older one when it really, I don't know who's older. But you look at one and you think he's younger because he's not physically built up like the other, but yet he was taller. So another thing is too, and it's kind of getting a little bit off, but I will say I worked out from the time I was 15 doing force negatives. Back when I was younger, force negatives was a big thing where you actually use much more weight than you can handle, and you let the weight go down, and you have spotters, and you do much more weight to force growth. I have not grown a day since I was 15 years old. I've always been like I was 5'10" at 15. I'm 5'9" now, but that's because of back issues and stuff. As you get older, I'm 45. I know I say that a lot. It's my excuse. I'm 45. Give me that. I'm 45. So my little brother, who is like 11 months younger than me, he's like 3 inches taller than me, and he never worked out with weights until he was about 20 years old. But he also could never get built like me, and environment plays a huge role on what you're going to turn out like later. And people say your genetic potential, but it works in many different ways, genetic potential. And that's why we diet and we work out and take supplementation, which is part of your diet. And you try to get the right amount of sleep, because to create the perfect environment that you can control. But most of this happens before we realize it, like a set of twins, as soon as they're in the womb, one is getting fed more than the other, and one is maybe to the left and one is to the right, or one is up high or one is low. Environment takes place right in the womb, and it starts happening, all through your life things out of your control, because look at poor people in other countries that they're starved. They're never going to be muscular. I mean, with supplementation, they could change that somewhat, but it's not a matter of even genetics. It's a matter of the childhood upbringing and environment, that plays a lot on how you're going to turn out. So I know there's a lot of videos that say, you have this much genetic potential, blah, 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 and this and that. I think also environment is super important. And that's why diet is so important now, that you can do something about it and change, and like at least become more of what your genetic potential could have been. But there's reasons that certain people are big, and there's reasons that certain people are taller, and there's shorter and smaller. And a lot of it has to do with diet, as you're an adolescent. So I don't know how this really, is going to go over, because the only point behind this is that I see a lot of videos that talk about, genetic potential, you know, and genetic potential. There are very few people in the world that probably could meet their genetic potential, because everything would have to be right from birth or even before then. What if your mom was on crack when you were, I hope not, but what if your mom was on crack, or, you know, um, not being a good mother while you were pregnant, that can affect you. Also, there's so many things I could get into, so many comparisons, and I don't want to get into people's personal lives of what happened, as children and why they may be a certain way. But really, it's very hard to come to your genetic potential. But I think that, you know, years of good habits over time makes a huge difference. Than, if you go in the gym and you're working out for a year or two, I'm going to be honest, that ain't shit. That ain't shit. There's no way you can reach your genetic potential. There's no way I mean, if you hit the gym when you're like 15 and you work out, you're going to be, you're going to get so much growth until you're like 20. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from that. I'm one person, I admit myself, that I started like, okay, I was sneaking in my dad's weight room when I was 8 years old. Now, I don't say I was training till I was 15, but I was doing everything behind his back, and he would get mad at me. He'd be like, "Jeff, you're not supposed to be working out with those weights." But I was always trying to sneak in and play with my dad's weights, because I wanted to be strong and I wanted to be big. And then when 15 rolled around, I was dead serious. I was already doing force negatives like crazy with my buddies, reading Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine, and just like talking bodybuilding like crazy. So that's why you see, like, over time you can get pretty damn big. I'm 45, and when I lean up, you see that I have a lot of muscle on me, and you can do that over time, but it has to be something that's gained over time, or you're never going to keep it, for one. People that work out for a year or whatever and do steroids, that's just fucking stupid. Doing steroids for 90% of the people doesn't make any sense. I know now it's a big thing, if you're over 40 years old and you have low T, to get T. And you know what? That's totally fine. I got no problem with anyone taking testosterone when they're over 40 years old. I don't even care if they're low T or not. If they feel they need it at 40, that's fine. But I'm at the gym right now, and I'm just thinking, there's so many kids in there, and I just hope they aren't doing steroids, because it's such a waste, of such a great life and potential. And being a bodybuilder is a great thing for certain people, but it's not for everybody, you know. All right, that's my video. I think environment is probably more important than genetics. And the reason I think environment is more important than genetics is you can take somebody from a third world country that has the best genetics and they'll never equal somebody that living in America that has everything and high protein meals and the ability to work out. You know, most people would die for what we have and we take for granted. So for me, I think the environment, it's a pretty big issue. You know, your environment, what makes you who you are. Because everybody knows you are who you hang out with, and it's the same thing when it comes to working out. All right, guys, that's my video. I'm out of here. I got to work out.